doesn't look like it was serious injuries. So.
You want me facing camera or yourself? It's a simple
It's just a simple conversation.
All right. Well, that's
10 minutes. There we go. Good afternoon. My name is John with the Pine Tree. I have the great pleasure of being here with Supervisor Steve Walensky. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for meeting with us here, meeting with me here. And just so you know, if this spot looks familiar, I feel a little uncomfortable being up here because I'm actually in the super.
Well, about time you stepped up.
Well, thank you. Now, for those who don't know, I mean, I know, give us a little bit about your background. A little simple who, what, when, where.
Sure. Well, I came to the foothills back in 1971, actually. I was completing a break from college, and I actually rode a motorcycle through 38 states and 8 provinces of Canada.
Oh, very cool.
Ran out of gas around Jackson and stayed for a while. Actually went swimming in the river canyon just below where I currently have my farm. Fell in love with the place irretrievably, and decided to spend the rest of my life here. It was love at first sight, and I never looked back. This is a great place. never thought of any place else since.
Very cool. Now, before you were elected, how long have you been? I know you have an apple ranch.
Yes, and the county's only certified cider mill too. Which where I came from originally in Michigan, no self-respecting town would be without a cider mill. And finding none anywhere in the county, I figured I might as well sell in and get it done.
Now, a little tiny bit on agriculture, because I know with your farm and stuff, and I guess our little perspective on it, we spent quite a bit of time several years ago in Vermont. And to me, as you see with the calibers grown and a lot of the stuff going forward, Vermont takes that agritourism stuff seriously. I mean, they get it. I mean, it seems like that. On every corner, like we stayed at a little farm that had a 20-head dairy. They made a specific cheese from a specific region of France. That's all they did. Very specific agritourism. That I thought there was just some interesting parallels for what we're trying to develop here in Calaveras County with the wine and is that?
Yes, I'm actually a founding member of Calaveras Grown and was once an officer of it until my current day job got away. But this is an area of economic development that we haven't really capitalized on as fully as we might. There are all kinds of great niche farms in Calaveras County. We're raising emus, worms, believe it or not, and all kinds of things are going on here with tremendous entrepreneurial zeal on the part of small niche farmers. But we've never put all of that together. We've never connected the dots to the point where we become an ag destination where people, you can see in counties to the north of us what Apple Hill has done. You can see the Shenandoah Valley of Amador County and how wineries have banded together. And we're beginning to see that in the Evans Pass corridor. But there's a tremendous amount of ag, wonderful kinds of activities, and great family farms all throughout this county. Figuring out how to turn that into the economic engine and resource that it is something that's really before us now.
I guess I'm going off tangent here, but do you think that's something that specifically affects, probably allows more opportunities for, say, your district with the rural nature of it?
And yes. We have so many assets in District 2. We have 4 rivers running through it. We have one of the premier Class 4 whitewater runs on the North Fork of the McCollum that is completely undeveloped as an economic resource.
How can ores return that? What process do they have to go through to get that as a route?
Well, it's complicated. The key areas have to do with the dam release. You can't run these things unless you have agreements with the people who run the dams to release enough water to make it runnable. And it's got to be predictable enough if you're going to do commercial runs. So they've worked that out on the stand, and we would need to have similar negotiations and and work through those things.
So that's the real, I guess the physical impediment. You have to have consistent flow to be able to plan.
That's correct, or at least some part of the year,
right.
and
right.
that has to be consistent with the folks who are concerned with energy or other environmental issues. So
okay.
Well,
that makes sense because I wrote it a couple of years ago, and I was just like, wow, this is amazing.
It's a spectacular stretch.
Yeah. And also, your district, and we were talking a little on the agritourism and the ores stuff, there's so many underutilized assets that even other probably areas of the county don't even really know exist in this state. Is that true?
Absolutely true. Little known is the Gwynn Mine, which many believe has some of the largest deposits of gold left in the county. It's under a lot of water at the moment.
Right.
It would cost millions to sort of get going back again, but with the price of gold being what it is, the mines are, there's a lot of thinking going on around those. There are also mines upriver near West Point, and people giving careful consideration to existing activity. We have our forests, which are a tremendous resource if managed right and in a sustainable way. We have a whole, which are both, by the way, an asset and a potential liability.
Right.
They've been unmanaged as they have for most of the last 30, 40, and sometimes 50 years. You can log a place, have things grow up even aged, and become a very serious fire hazard. And that's what we've got. We've got 4 river canyons. We've got the prevailing winds coming up those canyons to populated areas like West Point, Wilseyville, Quenco. The CHIPS project is something that came out of a great deal of, we had for years, we had all kinds of disputes. Loggers would blame the spotted owl for the demise of timber industry. Environmentalists would blame greed-based resource extraction for a boom-bust cycle in that. And Native Americans were primarily employed at one point in the logging industry and then completely unemployed with the terrible economic devastation. The politics of this, of blame, led to a paralysis of policy, but nobody was anything but losing in the transaction. So pulling people together from all of those different backgrounds and groups, we did come up with the Calaveras Healthy Impact Product Solutions CHIPS project, which has put a number of people, it's a job training project, it's a fire safe and fire clearing project where seniors are getting 100-foot clearance around their house with grant money. We've got people reemployed. Folks who have been a long time underemployed or unemployed are now finding work through this or job training. We put 11 people through truck driving school.
Oh, nice.
And
nice.
People off of welfare and driving truck now. So that's the beginning of using our resources for our own economic development. A lot of people say we need to bring in things from the outside, but one of my views is that while it is true we could use some help, that ultimately our fate will be determined by capitalizing in a sustainable way on our existing resources. And we have so much to offer here. We have, for instance, the Lone Star camp. The Methodist Church has run that for years, but it's fallen into disarray. The CHIPS project actually has been up there for the last 2.5 weeks, getting brush cleared and getting the place spiffed up, and we have new leadership there that's getting ready to turn that into the conference center and camp that it should be.
Oh, nice. Now, for people who don't know, on the CHIPS program, is it basically trying to monetize your small fuels? You're just your brush.
Well, it's small.
Maybe larger than brush, but
here's the project that we're working on.
Right.
Immediately, we began doing some brushing and some fire safe clearance because that's where a lot of the money was. But we've also got business startups in dealing with small diameter wood. We're trying to salvage some of the high end stuff, and we've got people working on benches, trellises, that kind of thing.
Some nice decorative pieces. That
little garage cottage industries that are beginning, and we've developed some through a contest. We have some prototypes, and we're now trying to put those into production. The landscape chips is another thing that we've been doing. So people, instead of just having the rough stuff, we're putting through a 3/8 screen and getting some really high quality landscape chips, and we're selling that by the 40-yard trailer, and also even in little bags. We have, in addition, the hope, and and we've got a number of grant proposals in, and we had an earmark actually from the U.S. Congress until they cut earmarks. It worked that all the way through the Congress. $500,000 was to develop several other types of industry. The next step up would be peeler cores, small diameter wood, but getting fence posts for ag and for people's fences. We have a next project that we're looking at, which is, and we've done a feasibility study on this, which shows that we could make pellets for pellet stoves and charge a lot less because the transportation of being right next to, for instance, SPI has a tremendous amount of slash. If we were to turn that wood into the raw material for pellets to make for pellet stoves, that would be a tremendous boom and could even hire as many people as used to work some of the small mills in that kind of production.
Now, I guess there's a little...
Wait, there's one
sorry.
last cool thing.
Yeah, okay.
Increasingly, with the cost of fuel and the interest in alternative fuels, biofuels and cogen for electricity is something that we also did a feasibility study on, which shows that because, again, we're close to the forest, there's a long-term sustainable yield coming from this area. And even if we were just doing forest thinning and getting the forest back to health, which means environmentalists and people doing this work can get along and actually do mutual support, we find that the political paralysis is off the table, and we're able to go and do things that are healthy for the forest, fire safe for the community, and economically viable for getting ongoing work done for a long period of time. So we're trying to reestablish our balance and understand that the forests are a key part of our economy if we handle them well, and there's a niche for safety and restoration to health.
Now, with the price of fuels going up, is there? You were talking about the cogen stuff. Is it becoming? I'm probably not afraid, but I mean, is it becoming economically viable to use some of like the slash and the small diameter stuff to actually is a generating tool?
Well, yes and no. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has done a whole lot of studies nationwide about it, and what they find is that it's not currently at current cost viable when you have the forest in one place, the plant in another, and the consumers in yet another. But for local consumption, and for instance, we have a plan. There is a plan over in Amador County to put a cogen plant in that would provide electricity for 15,000 homes.
Right.
And we're looking at the amount that they would need for that.
Our whole county, right?
We would have to have 3 trucks going 24/7 to be able to keep that supplied with its necessary amount of fuel. Do we have that much currently from slash in our forests and from potential clearing or thinning operations? The answer is absolutely. And could we put ourselves in position to have a sustainable economy or an economic element that has that as a component? The answer is absolutely. And is it viable? Yes, it pencils out well at current rates if it's all close to home.
If it's local.
Only thing that could ruin it would be long distances at $5 a gallon gas, which and of course alternative fuels begins to help take us off of the need for fossil fuels as the only way to go.
And we're kind of drifting off our topic here a little bit, but I think one of the things it's been nice to see and I guess a lot of the different sections of the county that have been in the past been somewhat balkanized a little bit, coming together really around economic development. I think some of this stuff is core. I think it's this last few months has really been nice to see. I know there's an economic reality in the county that kind of necessitates some of that, but I think it's very nice. I mean, it's been nice to see, and I think you've been a driving force in that. I think it's say thanks. Thank you.
It's actually been something dear to my heart. I don't see rural poverty as particularly attractive, and I think it's important that we find a way. When we talk about the environment, part of that environment is the human condition.
Right.
And for me, representing a district that has actually got the lowest median income by far in this area. In fact, it's
only one of the highest.
We were one of the most prosperous areas when our mills were in full operation. We had 8 mills in our immediate area. and lost all of them. And by the time we lost them all, our district, there are 4 towns, the former mill towns in our district, had at their low ebb a median income for a family of 4 of $25,700 and some dollars. Now the state average is 67, something of that nature. 84% of our kids were eligible for school lunch support, which is a measure of poverty. We were in severe trouble. Now we're coming out of that slightly, but there's no question that the national economy and some of the housing trends are almost exactly the moment where we're rising from the ashes. We seem to have threats that require us to do some real serious thinking and planning to make sure that we make the best of what assets we do have.
Now, what would be your vision of the county, going out the next 10 years? What do you want to see happen?
I'd like to see us end what I consider to be sort of the primitive and tribal factionalism of our politics. I think that it's that we have debated for so long false dichotomies that are presented by relatively narrow groups within the county. I'll give you some examples. We have the idea that there's only 2 choices, that you have pro-growth, anything goes, or no growth, nothing goes. To me, that's just a bogus argument that only leads to friction and paralysis, and that when we accuse one another across lines, that we get nowhere. And in fact, some people will say that we have an anti-growth policy in this county. Actually, what we have is a whole lot of factions that neutralize one another and get nowhere on it because they're defined over their differences rather than gathering over where we can agree. So that's part of it, and I think leadership has to be healing in those divides. We also have disputes that are more cultural. We have newcomers and people who have been here for generations. And I find that there's often little sympathy or understanding between those groups, and sometimes there are economic elements to that too. Relatively well-off coming in, what we call equity refugees, selling a 2-bedroom bungalow for $1 million in San Francisco, coming here and dealing with folks who are barely scraping by. That's that's pretty natural kind of friction, and political demagogues can play people off against each other and read numbers and figure out how to win elections, but it makes this ungovernable. What makes places more governable is recognizing the true interconnection between people, the feeling in the country towns are that we do know each other across these lines, that we actually do care and love about the place and love it. And if there's not, that should be enough to get us in the same room, despite our differences, talking about not what we don't like about one another or what we don't like about people's initiatives, but what is it we can find to agree on and move forward on that basis.
And don't you really see some hope for that? Some really going, because if you look at our county, it's generosity around causes like the Relay for Life and all the other stuff. There's just an undercurrent of, yes, we may have minor disagreements on how we're going to get, but the general direction, I think, and for especially if somebody in our county needs help or something, the outpouring of just goodwill from completely unknown people in this county it's amazing. The per capita, our willingness to just give, it's.
We had a family at a fundraiser that was originally a Citizens for Walensky fundraiser that was about to be foreclosed, and they came away with about $1,300 to pay to keep foreclosure from happening. It happens spontaneously all around this county. We have the poorest town in Calaveras, West Point, one of the poorest towns, contributing $30,000 for scholarships for every single kid who graduated from Calaveras High and Mountain Oaks, just as a matter of course of growing up in West Point. We have every kind of generosity spirit that you can imagine. My question, and I'd say this to people who are listening, is why are our politics not reflective of that kind of mutual aid, kind of tolerance and understanding, forgiveness, redemption, and I don't know, height of spirit that so many of the day-to-day transactions in the county seem to indicate. So what I would say is take a look at rural culture, take a look at the things that make these places the kind of places where people want to come to, and figure out how to do politics that is really reflective of the spirit of these communities. Once we have that, I think all kinds of things are possible.
Yeah, I think well said. Now, how did you get into public service? How did you want to?
I took a terrible wrong turn on Retirement Alley.
Okay.
We had actually been thinking about these kinds of things.
Right.
Just what's going on politically in Calaveras. We had actually there was a kind of watershed moment where in the Blue Mountain communities we had lost the last mill.
Right.
We had two terrible head-on collisions where we lost youth to drunk drivers.
Yeah.
We had part of the town of West Point burned down, and people die in that, or a person died in that. And that was about as low as these communities could get, and still be the thought of this communities. And at that point, we actually brought some people in from the Rocky Mountain Institute who had talked about, who had been in other former timber towns, and tried to figure out how do you rebuild from
a little bit of a been there,
this.
done that to show you what to do.
Yeah, what does Phoenix look like when it comes out of the ashes, and how do you get one? This is kind of the subject. So a group of us began the Blue Mountain Community Renewal Council, and I think that's kind of where I moved into a local involvement on that. Of course, the Calaveras Grown and other things
Sure.
made me see different pieces of how this might come together.
Yeah.
And my love for kayaking, so kind of gave me a sense of the recreational potential. So we began connecting these dots, and then began connecting people in their communities, and it sort of accidentally evolved into a more political role. People were asking, well, what can we do to try to make policy out of these ideas? And it eventually evolved into creating a platform for economic renewal, which then had people looking for somebody to run for office on that platform. And I guess when the call went out, most people jumped out windows, ran out the doors, and I was left.
And I think this is one thing I've said before, and I think that our communities owe a great deal of respect and also gratitude for the people who are willing to jump into the arena. Because I think that sometimes politics can be a contact sport, and it's and I think that people is that this is real people, real lives, and this is real day-to-day stuff, and it's not always easy. But I think regardless of our political leanings and stuff, we owe everybody that enters these things a real debt of gratitude. I just think there's the common chorus, because you wouldn't do it unless you genuinely cared about the outcome of the county and the outcome of because who wants to put up with the grief on some of this stuff?
Well,
maybe I didn't say that quite right.
Actually, you say it quite well. The thing about public service and the perceptions of public service is that, in my view, at least as near as I can tell, my colleagues on the board all get up in the morning, every morning, trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Each of us has different backgrounds, different skill sets, different districts, and it may mean that we sometimes come to different conclusions.
Right.
But it's the art of that dialogue. It's the citizens in this county have decided to elect 5 people from dramatically different perspectives.
Yeah.
It's the art with which we deal with these differences and come up with conclusions, policies, and directions. That's the real trick of this.
Yeah.
And what it takes is a level of stability and not taking to our polarized tribal worst instincts. And I think by and large people do a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
Does the public perceive that? Maybe not always.
Yeah.
And do people sometimes encourage us to our more fearful selves? That can happen as well.
Yeah.
It's not an easy arena to do work in, and I do sometimes find myself amazed by, even in today's board meeting, we had people come in and who were just irate about something that none of us had been talked to about. This came as just a very big surprise. So sometimes a little protocol and communication and fact-finding before people come to harsh conclusions about what's going on would probably be a big assist toward reaching stability.
Yeah, and I guess we probably run too much, but I just, is there any little closing things of what if people are, are looking out there to mark a ballot? Because for your district, I mean, in June, this is it.
Yeah, we're 30 days off from finding out something about what our future looks like. Well, what I would just say to my constituents out there is that you've had 3.5 years now of a kind of different sort of approach to governance, and the little d democracy we talked about the last election is thriving well. District 2 has hundreds of people involved in all kinds of projects that they themselves have set forth. I'm a fan of Thomas Paine and Jefferson as well, that the people should be deciding their direction and be masters of their own fate. And so my hope is that people will look at the energy and the zeal that I put into this work and give me a little bit more time to do that. But I am also finding this round of elections, running as an incumbent, which I've never experienced in my life, to be a deeply humbling experience. You have a record. Nobody's going to believe a lot of rhetoric and talk. So I would ask people to look at my website, www.stevewilensky.com. Take a look at our report card for the last 3.5 years. Take a look at the platform projecting the next 4. Take a look at the newspaper articles that you can link to. And we've also posted both candidates' half-hour interviews on our website so that people can compare. I believe that people make the right decision for themselves. I have faith in that, and we'll live by the results.
I want to say thank you to you, for you're an extremely busy man, for spending a few minutes with us, and good luck.
Well, thank you for your interest. Appreciate it.